They said Bronson Reed was unstoppable. They said his size and power made him the perfect opponent to finally expose Brock Lesnar's age and declining athleticism. WWE management bet everything on Reed being the monster who could end the Beast's dominance once and for all, but what happened in that ring tonight was so one-sided, so brutally embarrassing for Reed, that it's going to destroy his entire push and leave WWE scrambling to explain how they got it so catastrophically wrong. Bronson Reed lasted exactly 4 minutes and 37 seconds against Brock Lesnar before being reduced to a broken, gasping mess on the canvas, and the most shocking part wasn't just how easily Brock dismantled him, it was how Reed's own confidence completely crumbled the moment he realized he was facing a legitimate destroyer who doesn't care about his reputation, his feelings, or his future in the company. The build-up to this match had everyone convinced that Reed's size advantage and recent dominant performances would at least make this competitive. WWE's marketing machine spent weeks promoting Reed as the Aussie Colossus who possessed the rare combination of size and agility that could trouble even someone of Brock's caliber. Social media was buzzing with predictions that this could be the passing of the torch moment that established Reed as WWE's next monster heel while sending Brock into retirement. Wrong. Dead wrong. What we witnessed instead was a masterclass in legitimate athletic superiority that reminded everyone why Brock Lesnar remains the most dangerous performer in all of sports entertainment. From the opening bell, it was clear that Reed had no idea what he was dealing with, and Brock made sure to educate him in the most painful way possible. The first suplex happened so fast that Reed didn't even have time to brace for impact. Brock grabbed him around the waist, lifted all 300 pounds of the big bronze bull like he weighed nothing, and drove him into the canvas with such authority that the entire ring shook. But here's what made it so devastating: you could see the exact moment when Reed realized he was completely outmatched, and the fear that flashed across his face was absolutely priceless. Reed tried to use his size to bull rush Brock in the corner, probably thinking his weight advantage would give him some kind of edge in close quarters combat. The result was humiliating. Brock not only absorbed Reed's charge without budging an inch, but he grabbed Reed by the throat, spun him around, and delivered a belly-to-belly suplex that sent the big man flying across the ring like a rag doll. The crowd's reaction said it all: this wasn't going to be the competitive match anyone expected. What happened next was pure psychological warfare that showed just how ruthless Brock can be when he wants to make a statement. Instead of going for a quick finish, Brock started methodically breaking down Reed's confidence and fighting spirit. Every suplex was followed by Brock standing over Reed with that predatory smile, letting him know that this was just the beginning of his suffering. The German suplex sequence was where Reed's night went from bad to absolutely catastrophic. Brock hit him with 5 consecutive German suplexes, each one more brutal than the last, and Reed's attempts to fight out of Brock's grip became increasingly desperate and ineffective. By the 4th suplex, Reed was barely conscious, and by the 5th, he was completely limp in Brock's arms like a broken toy. But Brock wasn't finished demonstrating his dominance. He pulled Reed to his feet and delivered an F5 so vicious that Reed bounced off the canvas and rolled completely out of the ring. The impact was so severe that medical personnel started moving toward ringside, thinking Reed might have suffered a serious injury. Instead, Brock followed him outside and threw him back into the ring like he was disposing of garbage. The crowd was in complete shock at how one-sided this beating had become. These were fans who had watched Reed demolish other opponents with ease, who had seen him destroy established main event talent, and who expected him to at least make Brock work for his victory. Instead, they were witnessing the systematic demolition of a wrestler who was supposed to be WWE's next big monster. Reed's attempts to mount any kind of offense were pathetic and only served to make Brock's dominance more obvious. When Reed finally managed to connect with a shoulder block, Brock didn't even stumble, he just smiled and shook his head like he was disappointed in Reed's lack of power. When Reed tried for his tsunami splash, Brock caught him in midair and transitioned directly into another F5 that nearly put Reed through the canvas. The psychological aspect of this destruction was almost as brutal as the physical beating. You could see Reed's confidence evaporating with each failed attempt to hurt Brock, and his body language shifted from aggressive monster to desperate survivor trying to escape a predator. The transformation was so complete that even Reed's most loyal fans started feeling sorry for him rather than cheering for his comeback. Brock's conditioning and athleticism were on full display throughout this massacre, proving that all the questions about his age and motivation were completely unfounded. He moved with the same explosive speed and power that made him a UFC heavyweight champion, and Reed's size advantage meant absolutely nothing against someone with legitimate combat sports credentials and genetic advantages that can't be taught or learned. The ending of this match was merciless and designed to send a message to anyone who thought Brock was vulnerable or ready to pass the torch to younger talent. After hitting his 3rd F5 of the match, Brock didn't immediately go for the pin. Instead, he pulled Reed up again and delivered a 4th F5 just to make sure everyone understood that this wasn't even close to his physical limit. When Brock finally decided to end Reed's misery, he placed one boot on Reed's chest and flexed for the cameras while the referee counted the most academic 3 count in recent memory. The visual of the Beast Incarnate standing triumphant over the broken body of someone who was supposed to be his equal was devastating for Reed's credibility and future prospects. The aftermath of this squash match has sent shockwaves through WWE's booking philosophy and raises serious questions about how they evaluate talent and plan storylines. Reed was positioned as a legitimate threat to established stars, but his complete inability to even slow down Brock has exposed him as just another big guy who looks impressive against smaller opponents but crumbles when facing elite competition. WWE's marketing department is probably in full panic mode trying to figure out how to spin this disaster into something positive for Reed's character development. How do you recover from being demolished so thoroughly by someone you were supposed to be able to compete with? How do you maintain credibility as a monster when you've been exposed as vulnerable to anyone with legitimate athletic credentials? The ripple effects of this beating will be felt throughout WWE's entire heavyweight division. Other wrestlers who were scheduled to work programs with Reed are probably questioning whether those matches will still be compelling for audiences who just watched him get destroyed so easily. The mystique and intimidation factor that made Reed effective against other opponents has been completely shattered by Brock's casual dominance. Industry veterans are calling this one of the most one-sided beatings in WWE history, comparing it to legendary squash matches that redefined careers and established new hierarchies within the company. The difference is that those classic squashes usually involved unknown wrestlers being destroyed by established stars, not supposed monsters being exposed as frauds by part-time performers. Reed's physical condition after this match tells the whole story of how complete his destruction was. He required assistance to leave the ring, stumbled multiple times while walking up the ramp, and was reportedly taken directly to the medical facility for evaluation. This wasn't just a loss, it was a systematic breakdown of everything that made him appear dangerous and unstoppable. The crowd's reaction during and after this match revealed just how drastically Reed's stock has fallen in the span of less than 5 minutes. Fans went from expecting a competitive match to witnessing a complete burial, and their stunned silence spoke volumes about how shocking Brock's dominance really was. These weren't just wrestling fans watching entertainment, they were witnessing legitimate athletic superiority in action. Brock's post-match behavior showed that this beating was intentional and calculated rather than just the result of Reed having a bad night. He took extra time to pose and celebrate, making sure cameras captured his complete lack of fatigue despite having just demolished someone 30 pounds heavier than him. The message was clear: he's still the apex predator in WWE's ecosystem. The technical aspects of this match demonstrated why legitimate athletic credentials matter so much in professional wrestling. Brock's wrestling background, combined with his natural strength and conditioning, created advantages that Reed simply couldn't overcome through size alone. Every exchange highlighted the difference between manufactured toughness and genuine combat ability. WWE's creative team is now faced with the difficult task of rebuilding Reed's credibility after this public humiliation. The traditional booking logic suggests putting him in matches against smaller opponents where his size advantage can be re-established, but the damage to his reputation may be too severe for audiences to take him seriously as a threat again. The financial implications of this booking decision are significant for WWE's programming plans. Reed was being positioned for major storylines and potentially championship opportunities, but his inability to compete with elite talent has probably derailed months of carefully planned story development. The company may have to completely restructure their heavyweight division hierarchy. Other wrestlers on the roster are probably taking notes about what this match reveals about WWE's current booking philosophy and Brock's continued role within the company.